Karen attacks me and steals my PS5. Not knowing it was a box of rocks, I still don't know how things escalated the way they did. Looking back, it was supposed to be a simple Christmas surprise for my son. Something fun, something he'd remember. But one small decision, one tiny moment, set everything in motion, and now I can't stop thinking about how it all played out. So, a little background. My name's Richard. I work a regular job, nothing fancy, but I get by. The most important thing in my life? My son, Noah. Noah's 12, smart as hell, and obsessed with video games. But his world has always been a little smaller than most kids. He was born with a neuromuscular disorder, one that slowly weakens his muscles, making movement harder over time. It's not something that came out of nowhere. We've known since he was little. The first time I really understood what it meant, I remember sitting in the doctor's office, holding him in my arms while they explained it. They used all these clinical terms, things I had to go home and look up later. But the one thing that stuck with me was when the doctor said, "He won't be able to run and play like other kids." That hit me hard. Not because I cared about sports or anything like that, but because I knew what it meant for his future. It meant playgrounds would always be a little out of reach. It meant simple things like climbing stairs would take effort most people don't even think about. It meant there were going to be moments when he'd have to sit and watch while other kids ran ahead. I did everything I could to make sure he never felt left out. But the truth is, the world isn't built for kids like him. We tried the adaptive sports leagues, the physical therapy sessions, all of it. But as he got older, he started to notice the differences more. Started asking why his legs got tired so fast, why he couldn't keep up with his friends at school. And I never really had the perfect answer for him. That's when gaming became his escape. Give Noah a controller and suddenly none of that mattered. He could race cars, jump across rooftops, swing between skyscrapers, things he'd never be able to do in real life, but in a game, he was unstoppable. I'd watch him get lost in these massive worlds. Eyes lit up, fingers moving faster than I could follow. It was more than just a hobby for him. It was freedom. But even outside of the games, it was how he connected. A lot of kids his age had after-school activities, sports teams, clubs. Noah had his online friends. They talked for hours, strategizing over missions, cracking jokes, making plans for the next session. I'd hear him laughing from his room, and it made me feel good knowing he had that. So, when the PS5 came out, it was all he talked about. Not in a dad buy this for me kind of way, Noah's not like that. He just got excited about the games, the new features, the stuff he could do. I could tell how much it meant to him. And I knew, without a doubt, that I was going to get him one. It wasn't easy. Bills were tight, and picking up extra shifts took a toll. There were nights when I came home exhausted, barely able to keep my eyes open. But every time I thought about skipping a shift or pushing off saving for another month, I reminded myself what it would mean to him. That moment when he opened the box and realized what it was. That moment when, for once, he wouldn't have to miss out on something his friends had. And I had a plan, one that would make the surprise even better. See, Noah and I have this tradition. Every year, before we give each other our real Christmas gifts, we exchange gag gifts first. Dumb stuff. Like last year, he wrapped an empty can of Pringles and told me it was limited edition air. The year before, I gave him a box of packing peanuts labeled Snow from the North Pole. Stupid, but it's our thing. This year, I wanted to step it up. I had the perfect idea. I'd put some heavy junk inside a PS5 box, let him open it and freak out, and then boom, pull out the real one. I could already picture the look on his face. Yeah. That's where everything started going off the rails. The morning before Christmas Eve, I headed out to pick up the PS5. But first, I needed to make the prank box feel real. I figured it had to have some weight, or he'd suspect something was up right away. As I was driving, I passed by this construction site a few blocks from my neighborhood. It was one of those half-finished office buildings with scaffolding everywhere. Right by the edge of the site, near the sidewalk, there was this pile of leftover rocks. Medium-sized, perfect for what I needed. I pulled over, grabbed a few, and wrapped them in an old towel I had in the trunk. Didn't want them shifting around and making noise. Then, I stuffed them into the empty PS5 box I had saved from a buddy who'd gotten one earlier in the year. When I lifted it, it felt legit, just heavy enough to pass as the real thing. I sat there for a second, laughing to myself, imagining Noah's reaction. This was going to be great. With the prank box secured in my trunk, I drove off to the local game store, ready to finally pick up the real deal. I should have known it wouldn't be that easy. The store was a madhouse. Christmas Eve madness, people running around, grabbing whatever they could last minute. I weaved through the chaos and made a beeline for the electronics section. And there it was, the last PS5. For a second, I thought it was a mirage. I mean, it had been damn near impossible to find one all year, and I half expected the guy behind the counter to tell me it was just for display or something. But no, it was real and it was mine. I paid, got the receipt, and walked out of there like I had just won the lottery. I was still riding that high when it happened. Right as I stepped out of the store, this couple came barreling toward me, like, full-on shoulder check. The guy, tall, dressed like he thought he was better than everyone, barely glanced at me. The woman, dripping in jewelry, shot me a dirty look like I had gotten in their way. No, excuse me, no apology, nothing. I don't usually let stuff like that get to me, but something about them rubbed me the wrong way. Maybe it was the way they carried themselves, like they owned the place. Or maybe it was because I had just fought through a sea of people to get this damn console, and they just shoved past like I wasn't even there. Whatever. I shook it off and kept walking. But I should have paid more attention. Because that couple, they weren't just some random jerks, and I had no idea that I was about to cross paths with them again. In the worst way possible. I should have known something was off the second I saw them walking toward me. I was in the parking lot, leaning against my car, cracking open a bottle of water before heading home. The adrenaline from scoring the PS5 was finally wearing off, and I was just soaking in the moment. Christmas Eve, the crisp winter air, the satisfaction of knowing my son was about to have the best surprise of his life. And then I heard it. A sharp, demanding voice cutting through the usual parking lot noise. "Hey, you!" I looked up. A well-dressed couple was storming toward me, looking pissed. I recognized them instantly. They were the same pair who had shoved past me in the store earlier. The woman walked like she was on a mission, her heels clicking aggressively against the pavement. The man followed closely, his expression smug, like he was about to win an argument that hadn't even started yet. I had no idea what they wanted, but from the way they were moving, I knew it wasn't good. The woman stopped just a few feet away, crossing her arms. "Did you just buy the last PS5? She asked, her voice laced with entitlement. I hesitated. Not because I didn't know the answer, but because I already saw where this was going, and I really didn't want to deal with it. Still, I wasn't going to lie. "Yeah," I said. "I did." Her expression tightened. "You need to give it to us." I blinked. What?" She sighed like I was being so unreasonable. "Our kids deserve it more. We've been looking all over, and it's not fair that you got the last one." I almost laughed, thinking this had to be some kind of joke. But the guy stepped in, nodding in agreement. "Look, man, just do the right thing," he said. "You can always find another one later." My jaw clenched. The audacity. "Yeah, well, this one's for my son," I said, keeping my voice steady. "He's been waiting for this all year." The woman scoffed. "So have our kids." I exhaled sharply, trying to keep my patience in check. "My son has a disability," I said. "He can't go outside and play like other kids. Gaming is everything to him." I expected that to shut them up. Maybe appeal to some shred of human decency. But the woman just threw up her hands. "That's not fair," she snapped. "Our kids need it just as much. Do you know how long we've been looking? We don't have time to drive all over town." At this point, I wasn't even sure how to respond. Every argument they threw at me got more ridiculous by the second. The man switched tactics. "All right, man, how about this? I'll give you $200 for it." I let out a short laugh. "I paid $400 for it." "Fine," he said. "300. "No," the woman groaned. "You are being so selfish. Just sell it to us." I shook my head. "Not happening. That should have been the end of it. They should have just accepted defeat and walked away. But instead, things took a turn. A bad one. Before I even saw it coming, the guy shoved me. Hard. I stumbled back, my foot catching on the curb. My glasses slipped off my face, clattering against the pavement. The world blurred around me, and I barely managed to catch myself before hitting the ground. I was still trying to get my bearings when I heard it, my trunk popping open wider. Panic surged through me. They were reaching inside. Scrambling, I dropped to my hands and knees, groping for my glasses. I could hear the woman hissing, "Grab it! Hurry!" My fingers finally found my frames, and I shoved them onto my face just in time to see the two of them yanking a box out of my trunk. The PS5 box. "Hey!" I shouted, lunging to my feet. The woman clutched the box to her chest like it was a winning lottery ticket. The man was already sprinting toward their car, fumbling for his keys. I took off after them. They were fast, but adrenaline was on my side. I was closing in, almost close enough to grab the guy's jacket. The car doors flew open. The woman practically dove into the passenger seat while the man flung the PS5 box into the back. The engine roared to life. I slammed my hand against the side of their car as they peeled out of the parking lot, my heart hammering. I stood there, breathless, watching their taillights disappear around the corner. They were gone. They had stolen my son's Christmas present, and there was nothing I could do about it. Or at least that's what I thought, because then I turned around, and I saw what was still sitting in my backseat. For a second, I just stood there, completely frozen. Then, slowly, I walked back to my car. I leaned over, peered inside, and I saw it. The real PS5, right there, untouched. It took my brain a few seconds to catch up. And then it hit me. They had stolen the prank box, the one filled with rocks. I started laughing, like, full on, can't breathe, hands on my knees laughing. A bystander, some guy who had seen the whole thing, ran over. "Dude, are you okay?" he asked, eyeing me like I had lost my mind. I tried to answer, but I was still laughing too hard. I gasped between breaths. "They stole the wrong one." The guy just blinked. "Wait, what?" I wiped my eyes, still grinning like an idiot. I was playing a prank on my kid. That box is filled with rocks. The guy stared at me. Then, slowly, a grin spread across his face. "No way," he said. I nodded. He let out a short laugh. "Dude, that is karma." I couldn't have said it better myself. Because in a few hours, when they finally tore off that wrapping paper, they were in for one hell of a surprise. The guy offered to call the cops. I thought about letting it go. For a brief moment, standing in that parking lot, still half laughing over what had just happened, I considered just driving home and moving on. The couple had taken a prank box filled with rocks instead of the real PS5. In a way, karma had already done its job. But then I remembered something, the shove. The way that guy had knocked me down without hesitation. How they had stolen something from me like it was their right. If it had been anyone else, someone older, weaker, or just a kid, what then? They couldn't get away with that. So when the bystander, still grinning, asked again if I wanted to call the cops, I nodded. "Yeah," I said. "Let's do it." The police arrived faster than I expected. 2 officers, one older, one younger, pulled up and stepped out, hands resting on their belts like they'd done this 1,000 times before. "What happened?" the older officer asked, flipping open a notepad. I told them everything. From the moment in the store to the parking lot confrontation to the part where the couple literally snatched the box from my trunk and drove off. The bystander backed me up, giving an exact description of how I had been shoved to the ground. As I was finishing my statement, one of the officers gestured toward the game store. "We'll check if they have surveillance cameras," he said. Turns out they did. The store manager, still dealing with last-minute holiday shoppers, let the officers review the footage. And just like that, there it was, clear as day. The entire thing. The entitled couple arguing with me, the man pushing me, them grabbing the box and running. But the best part? The footage also caught their car and, more importantly, their license plate. "All right," the officer said, tucking his notepad away. "We'll handle it from here." I figured that meant they'd start looking for them soon. Maybe later that night. Maybe even tomorrow. I had no idea they were about to catch them immediately. About 15 minutes later, I was driving home, the real PS5 sitting safely in my back seat, when my phone rang. I glanced at the caller ID, unknown number. I normally ignore those, but something told me to pick up. Hello, is this Richard? The voice on the other end was the younger cop from the parking lot. Yeah, what's up? There was a pause. Then, with clear amusement in his voice, he said, "We got them." I gripped the steering wheel a little tighter. Wait, already? Yep. We pulled them over about 5 minutes ago. Their car matched the description exactly. Once we ran the plates, it was a done deal. I let out a low whistle. Damn, that was fast. Turns out they hadn't even checked the box yet. These two idiots were so confident in their crime, so sure they had just pulled off the ultimate Christmas heist, that they hadn't even bothered to look inside before getting caught. I had to bite my tongue to keep from laughing. They're denying everything, of course, the cop continued. But when we mentioned the surveillance footage and the eyewitness statements, their tune changed real quick. A few weeks later, justice was served. The man was convicted of robbery and battery and sentenced to 6 months in jail. The woman was found guilty of theft and sentenced to 3 months in jail. Their actions had consequences, and they had no one to blame but themselves. After the whirlwind of events, I was determined to uphold the holiday tradition Noah and I cherished. Our annual gag gift exchange had always been a source of laughter and bonding, and this year, I wanted to make it unforgettable. I decided to play off everything that had happened and take our prank tradition up a notch. Instead of just handing over the PS5, I wrapped it in a massive box and disguised it as something completely ridiculous. A fart machine 3000. I had seen a prank like this online and knew it would be perfect. On Christmas morning, I handed Noah the oversized box, barely holding back a smile. His eyes widened in anticipation as he tore through the wrapping paper. But as soon as he uncovered the fart machine logo on the box, he froze, staring at it in disbelief. Then, he burst into laughter, shaking his head. "Really, Dad? A fart machine?" I grinned, ruffling his hair. "Gotcha." He was still laughing as he opened the box, expecting some kind of gag inside, when suddenly his expression changed. His hands froze mid-motion as he pushed aside the fake packaging and saw what was actually inside. His eyes widened. "No way," I nodded, grinning. "Yes way." Noah reached in and carefully pulled out the real PS5. His face was a mix of shock, excitement, and pure joy. "You actually got it?" he whispered, like he couldn't believe it was real. "Merry Christmas, buddy," I said. For a moment, he just stared at it, like he was processing everything. Then he let out a yell of excitement and tackled me in a hug so tight I thought my ribs might crack. The prank had worked perfectly. The joy and excitement on his face were priceless. We spent the rest of the day setting it up and diving into new gaming adventures together. In the months that followed, life settled into a comfortable rhythm. Noah's passion for gaming began to intertwine with a burgeoning interest in programming. He became fascinated with how games were made and started exploring the basics of coding. Given his limited mobility due to his neuromuscular condition, programming became a perfect outlet for his creativity and intellect. He delved into online courses tailored for kids, learning languages like Scratch and Python. I was amazed at how quickly he picked up concepts, often surpassing my understanding. To support his newfound passion, I reached out to local organizations and discovered a community of young programmers. Noah began participating in virtual coding workshops and hackathons, connecting with peers who shared his interests. These experiences not only honed his skills but also provided a sense of belonging and accomplishment. One project that stood out was when Noah collaborated with a group to develop an educational game aimed at teaching math concepts to younger children. The game was well received, and seeing his work come to life boosted his confidence tremendously. As Noah's interest in programming grew, we faced new challenges and opportunities. His school was supportive, integrating his projects into the curriculum and providing resources to accommodate his needs. We also connected with the Muscular Dystrophy Association, which offered educational materials and support programs tailored for children with neuromuscular diseases. At home, we adapted our routines to ensure Noah had a conducive environment for both his studies and his health. Regular medical checkups remained a priority, and we worked closely with his healthcare team to monitor his condition. The balance between encouraging his independence and providing necessary support was delicate, but with open communication, we navigated it together. Reflecting on the journey we've been on, I'm filled with pride and optimism. Noah's resilience and adaptability continue to inspire me. His foray into programming has opened new avenues for him, allowing him to channel his creativity and intellect in ways that transcend his physical limitations. As a parent, my goal has always been to support and empower him to pursue his passions. While the path hasn't always been smooth, each challenge has reinforced the strength of our bond and our commitment to embracing life's adventures together.